The big trend now, and it should be for a reason, is eating enough protein.
I know a lot of people today are on, Ozempic or GLP-1 agonists.
Listen, I've been talking about creatine for 20 years.
Do you think anyone's going to follow me on the
Nobody
internet?
wants. How do you prove anti-aging? What does that mean? Does that mean you're living longer? And are you living longer healthier?
Yeah, these are the main things.
Men and women build muscle at the same rate.
All right, Jaclyn, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me on.
Of course. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I am a licensed dietitian. I have a specialty in sports nutrition.
Okay.
So I have worked for about the past 8 years with hundreds of professional athletes, focused in NFL, NBA, Olympic athletes, and also thousands of active gym goers.
Mm-hmm.
People who are in the gym, want to get better results, maybe want to lose weight, put on muscle, or possibly have an underlying health issue, and also want to make their body look better.
Okay. So this is what you do every day?
All day, every day.
Muscles and nutrition.
Yes. I run a business called Athletes Nutrition, and I have 3 dietitians that work with me as well.
All right.
So if I'm not playing the dietitian role, I am now playing the entrepreneur role, which is a whole new role to learn.
Yes, for sure. So what's your personal inclination towards? I know you do kind of everything, but do you like doing the exercise and muscle building part more, or do you like doing the nutrition part more?
Personally, or as a business, I don't.
Personally.
Yeah, personally.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, they're completely different.
I know.
I think nutrition comes now. It's second nature for me now. I've been doing it for so many years. I don't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
Where I do love working out, but I'm not gonna lie. There are some days where I have to force myself to do it, and I'm like, oh, I gotta get to the gym today. But when I'm on a good program and I have a good goal, I do really enjoy the gym. It's it's something I enjoy doing. But to me, nutrition, I don't even think about it as have to do.
Yeah.
It just happens.
It's a part of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start with the basics. What are some foundational principles of nutrition for muscle building specifically?
The big trend now, and it should be for a reason, is eating enough protein. Most people are not eating enough protein. Now, as I say that, I also see people getting carried away with protein and eating, I don't want to say too much, because we do know the upper limits are high, but let's not forget your food has to be made up of protein, carbohydrates, and fat. And if you're eating just protein, then you're probably missing out on other food. However, we do need about, they say 1 gram per pound of body weight. It should be about 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. And if you think about that, most people are not eating enough protein. So protein is definitely one of the foundational grounds of nutrition for sure.
Okay. And is that recommendation for everybody or people who are trying to build muscle?
It's really everybody should be doing it. If you want to build muscle, absolutely. Now, if somebody's a little more active, say they're running a marathon, we need more of the calories to go to carbohydrates, and we might drop that down a little bit. We actually, scientifically, we do it in grams per kilogram. So when I think of pounds, I don't know if I can convert that immediately, but it does drop down a little bit, depending on your body weight too. If you're somebody who's a little bit larger and needs to lose weight, I'm not going to give you, 250 grams of protein, because how am I going to make up the rest of your calories? Right. So we stay within a range. We know that about 1.7 grams per kilogram of body weight is the lower limit for muscle protein synthesis.
And the high limit would be like over 2, a little over 2,
they say 2.2. There's some research coming out saying a little bit more, but 2.2 converts to 1 gram per pound of body weight.
I see. Okay. Yeah. I think about kilograms. It's weird because I'm used to thinking kilograms when it comes to weight. And what about the protein intake and meals pre and post workout? Do you have to space them out? Do you have to, let's say I start going to the gym tomorrow, do they have to eat in a specific way? Like, does it have to be timing specific, or before and after the gym, before they sleep?
Sure. I mean, absolutely. I always tell people, please eat before you work out, because you need to fuel your training. Now, is that protein or carbohydrates? It should be a mixture of both. We do know that eating protein before you go into a workout will give you a bigger window after your workout to not have protein. Okay. Just think about this. Your muscles are made up of protein. So if you're going into a workout and you don't have protein, where's your body going to get it from? Your muscle. Right. So now you're working against yourself. And that's why I always tell people, even if it's something small, if it's 15 grams, have some type of protein and a carbohydrate, because that's going to be your energy before you go into a workout. Now, we used to have this thing called the anabolic window, where we felt like, okay, you need to have protein within 45 minutes. That's not true. We've seen that window can get much longer. Shorter for women. Women have about an hour, but men have hours afterwards where their amino acid levels still stay high. What's more important is that people have carbohydrates within 45 minutes of working out. Because the way our body works is, it's like a sponge, right? Our muscles store carbohydrates. And after our workout, if the sponge is empty and we eat carbs, it's going to fill it right back up. And after about 45 minutes, that recovery period takes longer. So you can recover much faster if you start eating carbs faster.
Okay. So carbs definitely closer to the workout window. And protein closer for women, and then men can space it out to a little bit over an hour, even if needed.
And I always say, just to make sense of it, I mean, there's new research coming out all the time now. There's something that came out that said, you can eat 100 grams of protein and wait 7 hours. Realistically, it's easy. It makes more sense to get into a pattern that you can follow, right? So let's just say you eat 4 meals a day, or maybe some people want to do 3 meals and 2 snacks. Just try to keep it steady. Have your 3 meals be the same portion sizes and have your 2 snacks be the same portion sizes. Building habits are something that's easier to do consistently. And whatever you do consistently is what's going to give you your results.
And that's what's going to stick.
Yep.
Right? Otherwise, it's so easy to fall out of like routines that you're not used to, especially starting out. Is it true that women require less of time to heal after exercise? Like they recover faster, their muscles?
I don't know I have not heard that women recover faster. I know that we take a little bit longer for DOMS, that delayed onset muscle soreness. Women may actually feel that a little bit later than men. But as far as the recovery period, I know for endurance races, women do better than men because we utilize carbohydrates better. But as far as building muscle, I haven't heard that women recover faster. Yeah.
Now let's talk about just diet in general. So you said the balanced diet is important, but nowadays there's a lot of people talking about keto diets and intermittent fasting and Mediterranean diets. Do you ever recommend those? I know there's not a lot of data. Just having read through the data myself, I don't think, especially with keto, there are studies, but they're all small scale. So I don't know, as a nutritionist who's, helping people build muscle, how do these diets play into that?
Yeah. So ketogenic diet, they go back and forth with research of you can build muscle, you don't build muscle. I even did a ketogenic diet myself for 8 months as an experiment. You could build muscle on it, but it's not going to be as efficient. The bigger problem is, why are we doing a ketogenic diet? What is the goal here? And if the goal is for weight loss, it's not superior for weight loss. You're just cutting out food groups. And you're eating a lot of high fat and high saturated fat foods. So I don't recommend that somebody's on a ketogenic diet. It's not a long-term lifestyle.
Right.
It's like a trending fad diet. And fad diets are just going to have you pedaling your wheels, right? Like a hamster on a wheel.
Yes.
So learning how to really balance your macronutrients is where it's at. Mediterranean style diet, well, that's amazing. I mean, it's an anti-inflammatory diet, and that does have a lot of evidence behind it to help with heart disease. We use it with athletes because athletes have tons of inflammation. I always, talk to my best friend who's a dietitian, and we say, what the answer for everybody is? It's an anti-inflammatory Mediterranean diet. It always comes back to that in one form or another. Maybe somebody's a vegan, maybe somebody's a vegetarian, pescatarian, whatever it is, you could still build the Mediterranean diet around that.
That's very interesting that you said that because, again, as you said, it's not a long-term solution, the keto diet. And again, there's not any long-term data on it either, even for weight loss, even for other things that it's been tested for. Let's say we keep exercise building aside, there's not really data saying 5 years down the line and 10 years down the line, this is what patients experience. And I'm glad you agreed with that for the muscle building exercise part too. In terms of the Mediterranean diet, you said you could do it vegetarian or not. Tell me a little bit about vegetarians and protein intake for muscle building. So I'm a vegetarian myself, not a vegan, but a vegetarian. Yeah. If I want to go start working out, what kind of a diet should I be eating?
Vegetarian is much easier than vegan because you do still have your eggs and your dairy. And eggs are really important because they're going to give us the nutrients that pretty similar to what you're going to get in from meat. But the most important part is the protein availability score is pretty similar to meat. Whereas when you start using plants, the available protein is not the same. So if you can do Greek yogurt, and if you could do omelets, you do eggs, there are so many dishes that you can make where you can get to the amount of protein that you need. It's really easy as a vegetarian.
And even like tofu and
you can incorporate like tofu's also whole protein as well. Now, when it comes to estrogen and maybe women that are going through perimenopause or people with endometriosis, and there are some contradictions with healthcare, with underlying healthcare issues. But in general, most people are okay with eating tofu and soy if they're healthy and they don't have any estrogen issues going on.
Right. Which is for everything we're talking about, even protein intake, or creatine and stuff like that. Anytime it gets higher, in the higher range, you have to worry about older people and kidney disease and whatnot.
Yeah.
Just like you said about tofu. And hormonal issues, right?
Because there are some great positive effects of, soy isoflavones. But if you're somebody who has to really watch their estrogen levels, then maybe it's not a good effect for you. So I just think about that because I work with a lot of women going through changes of life and that might have some underlying female health issues.
So what are the good effects for soy? I didn't know this.
It's an antioxidant. It's one of our, it's a huge antioxidant. So there's a lot of positive effects of soy isoflavones.
Okay. So eggs, tofu, soy for most healthy people who are vegetarians, right? And do you see the muscle building? I don't know if you worked with a lot of vegetarians, but do you think they can still build muscle?
Oh, absolutely.
Equal, weight?
As long as you have enough protein. It like I said before, it's really the vegan that we have to add in about another 20% protein to make up for that available protein, because people don't realize this. Like peanuts might say, 6 grams of protein per serving, but the availability score of a peanut is like 0.5. So you multiply the 6 by 0.5 and now you've got 3 grams of protein.
Right.
So people are reading labels and they don't realize, it says 20 grams of protein, but if it's from beans and rice, it's not really 20 grams of available protein to digest.
That's very interesting. And for eggs, it might be.
It is. Oh, yeah, it's definitely higher. Yeah.
Because you're absorbing more.
Yeah, because it's technically from an animal. So.
That's very interesting because I'm a physician. I'm not that great at nutrition overall or for myself. They say doctors make the worst patients.
I have a lot of doctors as patients. They're not so bad, but people assume doctors know nutrition, and it's not taught at all.
It's definitely not like that. Yeah. Unless you're doing maybe family practice or internal medicine, outpatient, or you have a special degree in nutrition, then that's different. But there's so much that we have to remember in our brains as it is.
Right.
That nutrition is just not
it's not your specialty.
Yeah,
right.
it's just not our specialty. I have family members who ask me nutrition-related questions all the time, and I'm just like, I'm not sure about that one. But anyway, what I was getting to is that the bioavailability part, I never really thought about that. Yeah. Because I would still go to the store and sometimes be like, this salad or this tofu has this much grams of protein, I'm going to eat it. I never really thought about how much I'm really absorbing.
Well, tofu is soy, so that is on the higher end. But it's when you start to get into your other plants, like your grains, your legumes, wheat is very low.
I go to Chipotle and have beans and say I'm eating a lot of protein.
Right.
Probably
I don't know beans off the top of my head. Peas are a little bit higher. I know wheat is super low. Okay. So you kind of have, you also have to mix, like a legume and a grain to get the complete protein, to get all the amino acids. Mm-hmm. So.
Now let's talk about medications. I know a lot of people today are on, Ozempic or GLP-1 agonists. Is there a specific effect that has on people who are going to exercise? For example, somebody wants to lose weight really fast and then gain muscle. What does Ozempic really do to that?
We are seeing signs of lean body mass loss, meaning muscle loss. So that is one of the negative side effects of taking these GLP-1s, is that you are not just going to lose body fat, you're going to lose muscle. And I actually do have a handful of clients who are on the other side of things where they've lost a lot of weight, but they've noticed that they need to build muscle. And so we're working on that. And it's not just because of the insulin response in your body, which is one of the reasons why, but you lose weight fast, even if you were following a regular diet. And that's why we try to lose weight in a slow pattern. You are going to lose lean body mass. But a lot of people are eating very low calories on these. And that's part of it, is it reduces your calorie intake. And that's also how you're losing weight. And so if you're not eating enough calories, you're not getting enough protein, then it is hard to build and to maintain the muscle that you have. So there's a few different things that are working against you when you're taking these as far as muscle growth. But doing things properly, you can continue to keep your muscle, build muscle, and go on that path. But you do have to be aware. And a lot of people take this drug thinking, okay, well, I don't have to worry about my diet. But you do. And it's also, you can't be on, I'm going to say you can't be on the rest of your life, but let's be realistic. You should learn how to eat at some point and get off of it.
Right. So what would you recommend for somebody, let's say, who's on Ozempic and is starting to exercise? Would you really say, okay, you can start whenever, or you should wait for a certain amount of time before you start exercising?
I would exercise right away.
Okay.
You should always exercise in conjunction with a nutrition program, for for sure. I mean, there's no reason why you shouldn't be exercising, right?
Yeah. Do you, let's say one of your clients said, this nutrition diet or whatever is not working for me. What's your answer to that? Because I'm sure there's people especially in the early stages, right, who can't really stick to their diet or exercise regimen. How do you keep them on track?
I always tell people that being a dietitian, you have to know the science really well, but you have to understand people and coaching and psychology and really get good at that because everybody's different. You have to take a different approach with everybody. And part of what I do in my practice and what we do is we really take a time to learn our clients and our patients and understand their lifestyle and their psychology behind things. It takes time because sometimes people say, I just need a diet. I don't need to work with you for a couple months. No, you kind of do because I'm going to give you a plan that if you can execute perfectly, which some people can, you're going to be the top 1% of the world. But it takes some time and it's habit changes. And I'm also learning you. And every week when we have our meetings, I'm understanding what your hardships are. And it could be that you have lunch every day with a group of coworkers, or it could be you get home and your kids, take your attention and then you're starving at 10 p.m. Or it could be, everyone's got something different. Maybe you're dating and you go out 3 nights a week to dinner and we have to work on those strategies. Everybody is different in what they have. So it's really what I do when somebody says they can't do it is, try to learn what about this plan is their wall. Why can't they get over it and changing it? And it doesn't have to be like diets. We always go off of science, but I'm going to make you a plan that I have learned what your lifestyle is. And I'm hopefully making a plan that fits into it. I'm not trying to overhaul your whole life because if I do that, it doesn't make sense. It's not going to work.
Yeah. And they won't stick to it anyway.
No, it's not realistic. And I don't want to give you a diet. I want to teach you how to eat for your lifetime. And that's really where it comes into play. So I tell people, we're working together for 3 months or for 6 months. My goal is by the end, you don't need me. You understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. You can stick with the calories and the macros and the plan I gave you forever. But I'm really teaching you life skills and coaching you for that time period together.
Who do you think has the highest default rate? Like what kind of people? This is just out of curiosity because I'm sure there's some people who are good with diets and exercise and sticking to a plan more than the others. I think I'm in the others category, but still.
It really depends. It all depends on someone's mindset. If you come into it and you really want to get things done, a lot of people I work with are very driven and they're business owners to begin with, or they're very successful in their career, or they've gotten, at a certain part in life. So when they start this plan, they're focused and they're dedicated to it. But once in a while, I find someone, if you are not focused and you don't put that time in, it's going to feel like such a battle and a struggle that you're going to fail. So if you're not ready to make those changes, listen, we're in South Florida right now, right? So I live in Miami. I do have a lot of clients in Miami. Going out is a big thing for people.
Yeah.
And so if somebody's not ready to commit to cutting down on their alcohol, they can be on plan all week, but we're going backwards every weekend.
Yeah.
And so I would say it's the people that aren't really all in. And then I also work with student athletes. And sometimes it's not because they want to, it's because maybe they have an agent or they're trying to get a scholarship or their parents want them to. You can't do it for somebody else. You definitely can never do this for somebody else. And so I think student athletes sometimes take a little more time to understand and learn and realize they're different than their best friends. You can't be running through the McDonald's drive-through with them all night. And that's harder for them too.
How do you keep them on track? Tough love, or are you the opposite of that?
No, I'm a tough love person. Listen, I've been working in sports for so long, and the truth is, I've worked for teams. I know agencies. I know scouts. I know what it takes, and so if I'm working with somebody, I want them to get to that level that they want to be at, and I'm real. I'm 100% real with an understanding. I get it that you are a senior in high school, and you're probably one of the most popular kids because you're a great athlete, or you have your friends, guy friends, girlfriends. I'm understanding of that. But I also let them realize what's in front of them and the sacrifice they have to make. And a lot of times also we deal with body image in high school because they don't look like their friends with female athletes.
Yeah.
I don't want to put on more muscle. I want to be skinny. And it's not even putting on more muscle. It's you have to eat to fuel your training to get that scholarship because you might be the best in your high school, but when you get to college, you're one of how many scholarships, So there's a lot of tough love. I'm lenient, but if you don't show up every week and at least put effort in, then I'll be on top of you. Now, if you do put effort in, I'll give you 110%. So goes both ways.
What would you recommend to people who are just starting to exercise? Let's say somebody like me, I don't really go to the gym at all. Let's say I want to build some more muscle. What would your top tips be?
You need to find a weightlifting program that is what we call hypertrophy. I don't care if you buy something online, or I don't know if there's free things even out anymore, bodybuilding.com. Find a program and follow it. It should be like a 1 month cycle where you're going in, you're not doing random things, you actually have a set workout that you're following, and you should lift at least 3 days a week.
Okay.
And I understand starting out, you're not going to be in the gym 5 days. But I think the dedication of 3 days a week, we know 3 days can help build muscle. Most body parts do need to be worked twice to build muscle. So I would say set reasonable goals. So if you tell me I've never worked out, I'm going 5 days a week, I don't believe you. It's not going to happen. I'm going to be realistic. Yeah. It might happen for 2 weeks. So that's something that's reasonable and long-term obtainable. And so that's it. And you follow a program and you start your nutrition right away, because the research shows that people who start to exercise without following a nutrition plan actually gain weight.
Huh.
Because your hunger signals are off. And a lot of people, there's a lot of psychology behind it too. Like, I treat myself, I should treat myself, I deserve it. Yeah. But your hunger signals are going to be a little bit different. And if you're not eating on a set plan, then you are going to overeat calories.
Okay, so people shouldn't do what I do, is basically when I do go to the gym, I have a shake afterwards because, I worked out.
But like, what's the rest of the day look like? And then we do that. So, we actually, like, some of the top researchers always say, where exercise is not a good way to lose weight. It's just not. The opposite can tend to happen pretty often.
What about people who are trying to lose weight? So let's say for muscle building, 3 days a week, around 20 minutes or so?
For lifting?
Yeah.
It really goes by the amount of sets that you're doing. And so that's different for everybody. It's usually like 10 sets per body part. I would, honest to God, I think you need an hour, because you should do some kind of like stretching and warm up, some kind of cool down, and maybe a 45-minute workout. Okay. So I would block off an hour. To do 30 minutes, how much are you going to get done? And if you aren't doing what we call like prehab or warming up, you can get injured. That's another thing. Don't dive into a program that's too advanced for you, because the longer you can stay in the game, I don't care if you're an athlete or a regular person, the less injury you have, and the more you can stay in the gym, the better results you're going to get.
Yeah. And now let's talk about people who are trying to lose weight. For them too, are you going to recommend resistance training and weightlifting versus aerobic or moderate intensity exercises?
No, absolutely weight training, because you don't just want to be what we call skinny fat, right? And this is what people on Ozempic are kind of running into as well. Absolutely. If you are looking to lose more weight than just build muscle, we do want to do cardiovascular exercise. Everybody's metabolism is a little different, and what that looks like for them too. I tell people, if you can do 3 days a week of weightlifting, and if you could do cardio for 30 minutes a day for 3 days, that's a good place to start. Now, you can combine it. It could be you weightlift and then you do your cardio. Maybe 1 day a week you just do the cardio. You figure out how many days you can dedicate to it. But 3 days a week of 30 minutes is good. You don't have to do an hour. You don't have to do 45 minutes. You could jump on a 30-minute Peloton. You could take a walk outside. It doesn't even have to be super intense. It's the actual movement.
Okay. But again, just exercise won't help lose weight. It's
right.
Calories in, calories out.
You have to follow a nutrition plan for sure. Yeah.
Okay. And just to start with, let's say somebody doesn't have a plan, just cut down on your calories.
Well, that's where they say that, saying to somebody, okay, focus on your protein, because protein is very filling and very satiating. If you just say, you're 130 pounds and you're like, okay, this week I'm going to try to get in 115 grams of protein. Chances are before you were probably doing 40 to 50. So now your meals are going to be 6 ounces of meat or 5 ounces of meat. You're going to eat less calories. You're going to be full faster. And that's kind of the most basic advice we can give anybody is focus on your protein.
Okay. And I believe keto diet does the opposite, right? You do more fats with that.
Because, protein turns to carbohydrates through gluconeogenesis.
Yeah.
And with ketogenic diet, we don't want carbohydrates. We want to use fat for fuel.
What about calorie deficit and working out? Is that bad for building muscle? Let's say somebody is eating less calories, which could include less protein too, but overall just completely restricting calories and then going to work out. That's not going to work either.
Well, you don't
right?
want to completely restrict. You want to have a deficit that makes sense. And we say like about 20% deficit from your total daily energy expenditure is a good place to start. Yes, you can build muscle in a caloric deficit, especially if you're new to exercising. The more experienced you are, the harder it is to build muscle, but that's years down the road. It really is. Even myself, and I've been lifting weights for about 32 years now, so I just started to really say to myself, hey, Jackie, you have to increase your calories because muscle's getting harder to build. But you can absolutely build muscle in the caloric deficit. Now, you can't eat 1,200 calories. Then you're going to have, not just are you not building muscle, but your brain, your neurotransmitters, the way you feel, you're like walking around literally hangry all day. You're not in a good mood. You don't think right. You're not aware of your surroundings. You can't focus at work. You can't show up as a partner, as a friend. There's a lot of things that happen when you have that huge caloric deficit that people discount.
Yeah. I don't know how people do it, the fasting and I'm sure it's great for some people and works out well. For me personally, I need little meals at, intervals. I don't know. I get too hangry, as you said. But again, it's different for different people.
Men are better at that. Men, and we also know that women, our thyroid can be dysregulated by doing intermittent fasting. So men do a lot better with those styles of dieting than women. That's a known fact.
That's so interesting. What about sleep? Does sleep and the amount of sleep you're getting impact exercise or muscle building anyway?
Our sleep is when our body's repairing, right? So our hormones are repairing, our growth hormone, our DNA repair, our recovery. If we are not sleeping, it is so hard to even lose weight. They have studies where they show people just increase their sleep and they drop weight. So it's, your cortisol regulation. There's so much going on in your sleep. And they do say 8 hours. It's a little, it's not realistic for everybody, but 8 hours is ideal.
Interesting. So the more you sleep, I can't say the more that scientifically, I'm sure that's not been proven, but 8 hours of sleep or a good amount of sleep is necessary to build and recover the muscle
in the best way possible. Like you can listen, your body is really efficient. Like we've evolved to the point we're at today. You can still, people are like, I sleep 5 hours a night and I get, yes, you can still build muscle. You can still lose weight. It's going to be a lot harder. It's not going to be as efficient. Not everybody's the same. People are outliers. So I don't want to say you're not going to, but if you want to do it right, I would say you're putting effort in. You're putting effort in the gym, putting effort into your nutrition. Why leave off the sleep? Or vice versa. I tell people you're putting effort in all week on your diet. Why are you going off the rails on the weekend just to work against yourself? It's not fair.
And then you can't be compromising on your sleep to go to the gym either, because then that doesn't work well either, right? You're sleep deprived, you're not working out well.
Higher risk of injury.
Right. And you're not giving your muscles the time to recover or grow. The growth hormone spike part was very important too, is if that happens when you sleep, then that you have to make, use of that interval when you're
absolutely. And testosterone, all of that is happening when you're sleeping. But you're right about that. I often think about that too. Women going to perimenopause and our sleep, you have to think, do you want to wake up 5 a.m. to work out, or do you want to get those 8 hours of sleep? Because sometimes working out can be more stress on your body if you are not in the fully recovered mode. And that's why you see all these Whoops and Oura rings and all this data telling people how ready are you for this next workout? Because there's something behind it. There really is truth behind it.
It's funny, we talk about so many new things in fads, right? Whether that might be dieting or supplements or things that people should be doing for longevity, aging, exercise, whatever. But there are some simple, basic, boring facts that will never go away, right? That research has actually proven to be, positive research has been there, and medical societies recommend, like sleep, exercise, protein intake, balanced diet. These are the main things.
At the end of the day,
that's it.
We live in a society right now where everybody wants everybody always wants shortcuts, right?
Yeah.
Flashy things, technology. We have all these startups. They throw money into advertising. We're seeing all this stuff on social media. It's in front of our face. There is so much out there, but at the end of the day, it really does come down to the basics. Yeah. There is nothing that's going to come out that is going to defy the basic science of our body. It's just not.
Yeah, but do you think anybody who talks about, you should just eat it, this is what doctors say, right? Anybody asks me about a specific new diet or a new supplement or whatever, all I say is you should eat a balanced diet, have enough protein, have enough carbs, don't sacrifice on sleep, make sure you're sleeping right, take care of your mental health, eat good, don't take any supplements that there's no data for, right? And just eat healthy. Do you think anyone's going to follow me on the internet?
Nobody wants to.
Nobody's going to listen to that.
I have that problem too because I am very real. I don't like to talk about things that aren't tried and true. I almost feel like it works against me because I don't jump on the bandwagon or I don't have some fad that I'm attached to. But I have to be real at the end of the day. I have to give you the methods that are going to work and I have to stand behind what's going to work. Now, I'm very updated on the new supplements that are coming out, on the new botanicals. I keep on that. I have to. I work with, the highest performers in the world and I pride myself on that. So I do tell people, hey, there is evidence behind this or people have been doing that or it's kind of new. We've seen some good things. This is the risk versus reward. This is the cost of it too because a lot of these things are expensive. Yeah. And so if you want to put your money and your time into that, let's try it. But I'm going to be honest with you, we only have a year or two of data. So where are we going with that? I don't know. Yeah, so exactly. Some of it is also, placebo is really popular. Placebo effect. If you feel better and if you think you look better, you feel better and life is better, then let's do it. As long as it's not hurting you. But if I don't have evidence behind it, but you feel great.
That's good. No, I completely agree with that. Especially for people who can afford it.
Right.
And there's no side effect. Those are the two important things.
Right.
Because, placebo effect is a real thing. Our brains are very, very strong. We don't realize it as much, but neuroplasticity exists. Our brains can adapt and make us feel a certain way when we're on certain medications, right? So I agree to that. And I'm glad that there are people out there who are actually honest about all these supplements. And once you tell your clients that, hey, this is the data, this is what it is, and then that's their choice to take it or not. If they choose to spend their money on certain things, that's their prerogative,
Yeah.
Good segue into supplements. Let's talk about that. So let's start with creatine. I know that's super popular. What do you think about that?
Listen, I've been talking about creatine for 20 years, so welcome, everybody. Welcome to the creatine train. Yeah. Creatine is amazing. We used to use it just for power output and building muscle. I would say over the past 10 years in working in contact sports, we know that it's neuroprotective in concussions and in concussion recovery. And now we're seeing evidence in it helping with women in perimenopause and Alzheimer's disease. Creatine's great. It has a bad rap. People think, I'm going to gain so much weight. No, it doesn't work that way. Back in the day, we did creatine loading and people did put some water weight on. Now we know that there's really no need to load. You can just do your 5 grams a day. Okay. It does bring some water into your muscles, but it's nothing that's huge. You're not going to not fit in your clothes. And the second you go off of it, if you are worried about the pound of water weight, it's going to go away. So for instance, if somebody's doing a weight athlete, like a specific weight that they have to be at, we will take the creatine out before that. But people are so afraid, I don't want to get huge. Listen, I wish that was the way it worked because I'd be taking a lot of it. It's not a steroid at all. Your body produces its own creatine already. Yeah. And we're just giving it more. Now, women do have a higher demand for it because we have less muscle mass. We produce less creatine. We have less in our storage. So women do actually need it more than men, supplementary. But it's a great supplement. It's one of the highest studied sports supplements as well. We have so much, hundreds of research studies. And people will argue, there's so much research. We're not even questioning it. There's not even a question.
And is that the same as protein? Meaning, do you have to take that an hour or so before workout, or it doesn't matter when you take it?
Well, back to creatine, it's actually the most effective is right after workout. The difference between before and after is very small. So I always tell people the best time to take it is when you're going to take it. If you are not going to if you are going to take it before your workout every day, then do that. Okay. But we do know a little bit more effective afterwards. Protein is, we talked about it before. I say try to keep it timed throughout the day. Don't go into a workout with low protein stores. Okay. If you've eaten a meal 3 hours ahead of time or even 4, but I'm more concerned if somebody slept all night and their body's using protein for that repair process we spoke about, and then they want to go into a workout without protein. That to me is one of the biggest, do not do that, please. Okay. You're working against yourself.
How does creatine really work? And I don't want you to get into the full physiology of it, just overall, what is it helping?
It is helping power output, it is helping muscle development, and it is crossing the blood-brain barrier. So these are the great things that we're seeing here.
Interesting. Talking about the cognitive and neurological effects, I know exercise by itself has a lot of positive neurological effects, right? And overall just benefits in cardiovascular health and stuff like that. Could you tell our audience a little bit about that? I know people know this, but just to detail the actual science behind exercise and how important it is.
Sure. So we have like epinephrine, adrenaline. These are hormones that are released in your body. Dopamine, serotonin, all of these great like happy hormones that are going on in your brain are actually released during exercise. So we see that people who are depressed and start exercising will have an increase in even in their serotonin that they may not have had before. And people, it's hard when you feel down and out to get yourself motivated and moving. I have never met somebody who did a workout and said, I feel horrible. Like I'm so depressed after that workout. It really does uplift your mood because it's helping produce those hormones in your brain that even if you are in a slight depression and maybe you're not actually producing those hormones, it can help with them as well. And I think another big thing that people, with ADHD being so prevalent nowadays and people being on Vyvanse or Adderall, and it does suppress your natural dopamine production, or maybe you have lower, it can help a lot with that and a lot with focus and natural release of your dopamine.
Great. So mood, cognitive function, cardiovascular effects we already know about, overall long-term effects are great.
Also how you feel about yourself. I don't know about you, but I know that if I complete a workout or if I go into the gym and it's me versus me psychologically, and I know like I accomplished that. I got that done. So I feel good about myself. I feel stronger mentally, and then I like how I look from the results. I mean, at the end of the day, we are doing it to look better.
Right.
And it feels good. It feels good to know you put that effort in and that you feel good in your clothes and you look good, or down here wearing bathing suits all the time.
And that happens after a while. Let's bring that back to it takes a little bit of time to get there, because I can go to the gym a couple days and I'll be like, oh, nothing's changing. So people need to know, especially the newcomers.
It's inconsistency.
It takes a little bit of time and consistency to get there, to actually feel like, oh, wow, look, I see my gains. So I see my muscle growth or whatever. I feel stronger.
Right. We can lose weight a lot quicker than we were going to build muscle. That's for sure. Yeah.
So that needs a lot of hard work and consistency. Coming back to the effects of exercise, there's something about insulin sensitivity too, right? It helps with
It does, and even just walking. We know that just walking after a meal can help with your insulin sensitivity. So your ability to utilize carbohydrates that you're having. Now, that's back to the GLP-1, because it affects insulin. That's where it can affect muscle growth, because muscle growth does need to take insulin into the muscles. So it's a little more complex on there, but that is one of the negative side effects. But yes, it does help because when you're working out, your body needs to use insulin and carbohydrates. It does make your body more efficient in using it. So even if the first thing you're going to start is, I really don't know if I can get into a gym, just try walking at night, like 30 minutes. Try to find an accountability partner, listen to a podcast, put on some good music. If you have a neighbor or significant other or somebody who wants to go with you, it's the best way to start. I promise, believe it or not, walking actually helps you lose fat. It really does.
And there's a new podcast called the Sharma Show coming out.
Yes,
so I'm sure
that's a great one to check out, for sure.
I digress. Coming back to supplements. So we talked about creatine. It's good. It's good for muscle building. We should take it before or after, but preferably after the workout. 5 grams after your workout. It can go into a shake.
Usually lukewarm water is better, but nowadays it's micronized. So another reason I had a bad rap is because before it was micronized, it would pull water into your gut and people get like a bubbly stomach or gas. But now it's micronized down to a smaller molecule, so it should dissolve in your drink or your water before it gets into your stomach.
Okay. And then you can use it with water or anything else.
But I mean, I do have clients that just put it in water and drink down like this weird chalky water. Just put it in your shake or something.
And again, just a disclaimer for patients who are older, over 65, and with chronic kidney disease, ESRD, anything to do with the kidneys, that has different recommendations for creatine, right?
If somebody does have an underlying health issue, if you're healthy, you're fine. But if you do have some type of kidney disease going on, or maybe you in your last few labs, you've seen like your EFR has been different, or your creatinine's been really high, then, I would definitely check with somebody. You can just check with your dietitian as well. We're educated in that area too.
Okay, cool. Other supplements. What else are we talking about?
Magnesium is a great one.
Okay.
Magnesium for everybody's magnesium deficient.
And this is sulfate. Sulfate?
Well, I like to use biglycinate because it's the most bioavailable, so your body can absorb it the best. which is a good point. There are tons of different types of magnesium. Glycinate is I call it the all-in-one, like the like a spectrum, like a full spectrum, because it's the most absorbable. There is threonate, which is the form that in research shows crosses the blood-brain barrier and helps sleep more. So there are sleep studies showing that threonate helps with sleep. But glycinate kind of does it all. And so I tell people take it at night. It does help with sleep. It helps with recovery. It helps with muscle contraction. I mean, every time you contract a muscle, you use magnesium. I think actually potassium is the number one mineral, the number one supplement in general that people are deficient in. And then magnesium is almost everybody as well. So magnesium before bed, that's like everyone should take that. Collagen. Collagen is a big one. It helps with not just your skin, hair, nails, but also soft tissue. So your ligaments and tendons, we start to lose collagen as we get older. So taking collagen, and that should be done before a workout.
And those are supplements too?
Powder.
Just pills?
Oh, powder, because you need about 15 grams to be active, which is another thing. People are usually not taking enough. If for 15 grams in a pill, you'd be taking like probably 12 pills. So a powder for sure.
So collagen, mag, and then the creatine, these are good.
I'm trying to think what else. I feel like there's something else that I have everybody take. What do I take myself? I take so many things right now. Antioxidants are also good too. It just depends. Some people take sometimes I have people take like a vitamin C and zinc at night, just to get that vitamin C in and the antioxidants in. Always food first. We always say food first. So you can't out supplement a bad diet. That's for sure. But sometimes, especially if you're in a caloric deficit, it is hard to get in all your nutrients because you're not eating as much. That's one of the things that we see. Fiber is huge. So many people come to me and they are taking like 10 to 18 grams of fiber a day. And what happens with that is we know gut health, your gut is connected to everything. So fiber is another thing. Obviously we want to try to get it in through food, but if you need to take a fiber powder, do it. Throw a fiber powder in your shake too.
Are these things expensive?
No, they're all pretty cheap, honestly. Protein's probably the most expensive. It's just expensive to make. It really is. I mean, I've helped formulate for some supplements, and that's why protein's expensive. It costs them a lot. But magnesium's pretty cheap. Creatine's pretty cheap. You don't need anything fancy. You need a creatine monohydrate, not any of the fancy new ones that are out. What else? Collagen can be a little more on the expensive side. It is another expensive product. But, I mean, you can get it for maybe $40, $50 for a month's worth.
Okay.
So what is that a day? It's not that much.
What about NAD? I've been hearing a lot about that.
So NAD is one of the things I was talking about where I can say, okay, we have X amount of research. We don't have a ton yet. We don't have a ton on humans. They have tested on yeast and they've tested on it in labs and and things like that. So NAD is a coenzyme in our metabolism. And to make it as simple as possible, basically it's an electron donor. So if you remember back in science when we had the Krebs cycle and then we go to the electron transport chain, well, electron transport chain is really what gives us our energy, our ATP. Well, we need electrons to go into that. And NAD, if you look at it, has a plus next to it. It's an electron donor. As we get older, our body produces less and less NAD. So the thought is, well, if we're giving our body this NAD, then it has more electrons to go through this cycle
make more
and
energy, make more ATP.
Exactly. And that's really the thought process behind it. It's also, they say, anti-aging. My athletes a lot of my athletes, my pro athletes, do get an NAD in their IV. Now, here's where it gets trickier. You can't take NAD in a pill form. Your body doesn't convert it in the liver. So you need a precursor, which is NR. Yeah. There was NMN for a while, and I think the latest research is showing NR is better. And this is the thing, it could change tomorrow. So I do tell people that, we are just finding out new stuff. You are a little bit of a guinea pig along the way.
Yeah.
I've not heard of anybody being hurt from it. However, if you are on an NAD IV, it is a derivative of niacin, right? So you have that flush. So it just depends. Everybody's tolerance to that is a little bit different. So it's really, really important with all these IV places popping up that you go to a doctor or a nurse that focuses on this drug. Because, I say drug, it's a supplement, a vitamin, but it's a drug.
But of course, anything that can have side effects.
Yeah, and it's going into your veins.
Long-term studies, you have to be,
I take it in the pill form daily. I can't afford to do the IVs. It's expensive. That's the other thing. Depending on how concentrated it is, going to depend on how much it costs. Or there's another thing called a loading. So NAD loading is when you take we find out your tolerance and we do as much as you can, well, within reason. They have the exact milligrams for 4 days straight. and then you don't need it for 6 months. So an athlete who's traveling or either, that's ideal for my athletes to do. Just like, let's get it done. Let's do it in 4 days. Some people do it every week. Some people can't handle it because, like I said, you do get a flush. You definitely, if as soon as you take NAD, anytime, whether it's subcutaneous or in your vein, you need to sit down. It's like an overwhelming feeling. And while you're doing it, you're tired. And then the energy comes. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot to it. Yeah. I take it daily in a pill.
So you take the NR supplements?
I take the NR, yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's that brand, the True Niagen, which is the one that has all the research studies because they have a patent on it. You understand how that works. You know, it's like, so, you try to look for that brand because it's patented with the research. Yeah. But, it's kind of like,
it's so new.
I don't know. Do I feel bad from it? No. I do feel like I've had a little more energy, I guess, since, but who knows?
Again, there's also a placebo effect.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I've been, reading the research a little bit coming up. It's very interesting, but again, there's no long-term data or, long-term human RCTs or anything like that. But it's coming up. I really like where it's going.
And they say, here's the other thing, telomere length, right? And that's how we decide if it helps with longevity. Mm-hmm. Like, how do we know if it's helping longevity? That's going to take years of research.
Right.
Now, they say you can measure telomere lengths, but I just read something, and I speak to people who work in genealogy and that in genetics, that now telomeres are actually, they're seeing a change of telomere like every 3 days. So how relevant is that data? We used to think that we can measure telomere lengths, but it looks like you can change the size of telomeres by different variables pretty quickly. So now they're questioning if that is even a relevant source for things. So we're just figuring this all out right now.
And the NAD data has been more for anti-aging or more for the exercise part?
I think they're doing it on both.
Okay.
Yeah, they're for energy production, and they're trying to prove that it helps. How do you prove anti-aging? Like, what does that mean? Does that mean you're living longer? And are you living longer healthier?
Exactly.
What does that mean?
That's very important because I think everyone's talking about anti-aging, but do we really want to? I mean, to me, if I'm healthy, sure. But if I'm not healthy, do you really want to live longer? Like, why is everyone obsessed with undoing the natural processes of life? Is life and death and aging, and this is a part of life.
The other
and you'll see me doing Botox in a couple years.
I mean, listen, I am all for that. I know, my friends and my clients make fun of me because I am like, no plastic. This is bad for you. That's bad for you. That's bad for you. I was like, listen, if I could do Botox, I would tomorrow. So, I'm not, but that's realistic. But here's my thing. Especially being in this perimenopause stage and you hear all these things on the internet. Everyone's anti-aging men, anti-aging women, do this, do that. We have to live for today. Right? Mm-hmm. That's the thing people forget is if you're so worried, yes, we have to think about the future, just like you do with your finances, right? You plan for the future. Yeah. But we have to live for today and appreciate the age that we are now, everything that's great about how old or how young we are, what we have today, how our body looks today, how our health is today. And not be so focused on this anti-aging, aging, because the next thing you know, you're going to be like, oh my God, what happened to my 40s? Yeah. I was so worried about my 50s.
Yeah.
Or what happened to my 30s? So I think I'm in a stage of life where I'm really trying to think about the future, but live for today and appreciate every day of who I am today.
And that's where the boring stuff, like a balanced diet, nutrition, and exercise comes to play, right? Yeah. Because those things will make you feel better today.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's talk about men and women in terms of muscle building. Any differences? I'm sure there are. But in terms of training and building muscle, what differences do you see, and what are physiological differences?
Believe it or not, men and women actually build muscle at the same rate. It's just that women have less muscle mass on their body in general. So we can do the same exercises as men. There is no workouts there is some stuff coming out saying that as far as anti-aging, again, as you're getting older, that the zone 2 exercise that a lot of the men are doing, the zone 2 training.
What is that? Basically,
it's a place where your heart rate is at a place where you can have a conversation. Now, for me, my heart rate gets high fast. A walk is that for me. Mm-hmm. It's not a jog. Now, for somebody else, it could be a jog. I have some clients where their heart rate stays really low. So for me, my heart rate has to be around 116. My typical workout, I go up to about 160, 165. So it's very boring and monotonous. And they say an hour and a half of zone 2. Get on a bike while you're doing calls. Something like that. So they're showing that helps a lot better for men than for women. Where women,
the zone 2 thing with the heart rate and being able to talk. Okay.
That women really need more high intensity training and heavier weightlifting training for longevity. And I think part of it is because a lot of women are starting later in life also. So we need that impact on our bones to keep them stronger. And we need that weightlifting to build more muscle mass because we're starting from a deficit. I'd be interested to see someone like myself where I'm pretty equal to a man. I started lifting weights when I was 15. So, like somebody like me who has a lot of muscle mass, I wonder how that works, and that's, who knows. But they are saying that women, zone 2 is not ideal for women. It is for men.
But they do build muscle.
In zone 2, it's not about building muscle. That's more for like the cardiovascular longevity
thing
of it. Yeah.
But building muscle is the same. It's just
Men
that they
women,
don't have pre-existing muscle as much as men do.
Men and women build muscle at the same rate. We just have less muscle mass. So if it was like I was me and a 250-pound guy, of course, like I'm only going to be gaining, if you take the ratio, it's equal. I'm not going to gain 10 pounds of muscle mass. I might be 5.
Interesting. What are the other zones apart from zone 2? Or is that just one zone?
So if you think about like Orange Theory Fitness, it's when you get into your orange zone, they call it, which is like your zone 3.
Okay.
And so there's like zone 1 through 4. If you kind of look at a chart,
so
it really goes back to the old school charts that you may have seen in like a gym. And so like they say zone 3 is like let's go back to like your fat burning zone, which I hate saying. Are you burning fat or are you burning carbs? So the whole theory is, like in zone 2, you're also more in a fat burning zone. But, and this gets a little bit deeper, it really comes down to calories. So in zone 2, you're not going to burn as many calories as you are in a higher intensity zone, because let's just give a number. In like zone 2, you might be burning 5 calories a minute. In zone 3 or 4, you might be burning 8 calories a minute or 10 calories a minute. So where would you rather be if at the end of the day it's about calories?
It's 3 or 4.
Right, exactly.
Right? Yeah.
If I'm going to work out for an hour, I want to burn, 500 calories, not 300.
So you get more bang for your buck doing the zone 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Even though the earlier one is
more for longevity
and for fat loss. But again,
well,
you want to do more calorie deficit.
But if you were, so let's just say you work out in the morning and you're in a fat burning zone the entire workout. At the end of the day, after that workout, your body starts burning more carbs instead of fat because your body's efficient. Or homeostasis is a big thing. Yeah. So if for 1 hour I burned all fat, the rest of the day I'm going to burn more carbs, and it's a wash. At the end of the day, what they see is that you did not burn more fat because your body equaled itself out.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's the research that they've seen to prove that you don't need to work out in a fat burning zone because your body's going to make up for it at the end of the day.
Bodies are smart.
Very smart.
The human brain.
Yes.
Yeah. The most interesting thing in the world. Let's talk about difference